Well, welcome, Frannie.
Thank you.
Thrilled to have you here.
Thank you
So
very
I know it's been a busy summer.
It has been.
First, let me welcome you to DISH. And as a member of the board of CTA and just somebody who cares a lot about the Denver technology community, just congratulations on your new appointment, and we'll get into some questions on how you see the job going and those sorts of things.
Great, thank you.
So I'm going to get right into it. I mean, nobody wants to hear from me. Let's face it, I'm just lucky to be here. So let's just start off a little background on your career and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, I think as it probably said in the bio, I was 18 years with IBM, and that was actually mid-career. I was working for a company named Sequent. I don't know if anybody's familiar, you remember Sequent? And IBM bought us in 2000, and I had not been at Sequent very long, and I thought, oh, I don't want to work at IBM. It's so big, it's so bureaucratic. And so I kind of perked my head up and started looking for other jobs out in the Denver area, and I had a very bright vice president that interviewed everyone on his sales team, and he came into town and interviewed me to find out who I was, and I came very prepared with my PowerPoint on what I could do and what my credentials were and what I was interested in. And then we kind of bonded, and I said, I got to tell you, I'm looking for another job. He burst out laughing, and he goes, you're in the lobby of IBM. You don't have enough information to make a decision. And so it didn't do it mockingly, but he and I really built a rapport, and he got an understanding of what my skills were and my interests were. And at the time, I had a master's in telecommunications management. I was focused on the telecom industry, and that's where I wanted to be. It was kind of an interesting, kind of aha, is that once you put it out there and somebody knows what you're good at and what you're interested in, things just appear. And so about a week later, he said, I want you to lead our telecommunications practice for the West. And so, that was kind of a typical thing that happened at IBM. Now, I will say, and you see it with large organizations, you always have reorganizations. So what I learned very early was I always needed to know who I was reporting to at the top, and they always needed to know what I was interested in. And so some reorganizations, it didn't work out very well, and if it didn't, I knocked on their door and said, well, I don't like where my seat is, I want another seat. And almost always it worked out great. So I guess we should probably pivot to me leaving IBM and joining CTA. I joined the board of CTA at the same time John did. And, I was the senior location executive for Denver for IBM, and that's how I got engaged in it. And I'm truly passionate about technology and how technology is going to transform our society. And that's how I got really interested in getting involved. I think all of us see this acceleration of change, and this is just the beginning. It's predicted that in the next 20 years we'll see more change than we have in the last 300, which is a little bit shocking.
It is shocking.
So I don't know, that was a roundabout way of telling you a little bit about my career. I did start as a hex programmer. I was selling POS systems and then programming them into hex. So that little, the Martian, I was the only one that understood how Matt Damon was trying to communicate to Houston.
So you've navigated a lot of career growth. I wonder if you have any tips for the group on sort of things that you focused on and just in terms of how you navigated your career.
We could spend like 100 hours on this. You should talk to my kids. They're like, Mom, we got enough advice. All right. I think I just said some of them, which is, be bold. Let people know what you want. I think as women, we often think that if we just do a good job, somebody's going to notice. That's not really how it works. That's the minimum requirement. You got to do a good job. But what you have to do is let people know what you want, what you're passionate about, what you're good at. The other thing is that in this changing environment, we all need to be working on our skills all the time. I would say I get up in the morning, I'm a morning person, and I spend an hour to an hour and a half reading on either leadership or some technology. And I don't think it's enough, but time's kind of tough. I would also, what other things would I say would be, you're responsible for your career. And having said that, you're responsible for the ecosystem that you're in. So if you're not in the right ecosystem, figure out how to get there. I think I would probably say those are the big ones.
Those are great tips for all of us. So, we all face challenges and sort of have some of those moments where you're like, wow, this is really pivotal. This is a big thing. Do you have any stories or just sort of specific challenges that you look back to and say, wow, that really helped shape my next few steps?
Yeah, I will tell you, I'm going to take it from a holistic woman point of view. I'm a mother of two, and I have always, family has always been my priority, but I didn't feel like it was ever a choice from a career or family. And there have been times that it's just kind of messy. And I was very thoughtful about what positions I took so that I could have what I wanted from a family position. And I found that at one point I had an aging father who had Alzheimer's, and I had 2 little kids, and I was a single mom. And I had a great job offer that would have put me on an airplane every week. And I said, at this time, I just can't take that. Now, I recovered from that, and it took me 2 job hops. But that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, because I think as a human being, I grew more and became a better employee over understanding what it is to be human and to have a career. And I think I've been a much better leader as a result of really understanding that.
That's great. So this is a question that we ask frequently when people come and talk with us. So if you could hop in the Back to the Future DeLorean and go back and see yourself just as you were entering your career in technology, what would you say to that earlier version of you?
Okay. So I would commend myself on, if I didn't know something, I would find somebody that I knew it, and I would befriend them. And I have this dear friend that in fact, I'm going over to their house for dinner on Sunday. He was brilliant, and I don't know does anybody remember the PIC operating system? Prime computers? Anyway, we were selling Prime computers, and I did not understand any of this. And so I would write anything down that I didn't understand, and at 4 o'clock, I'd go down in the basement, and I'm like, okay, Pete, what's this? And he made me such a better salesperson because I had depth of knowledge, and I got good at being able to understand the questions that I had. I figured out the customers had the same questions. So I think I would commend myself on that. I think I would also have told myself I had needed a plan earlier. Because when I started working, I'm going to tell you, I thought it was just a job. And then I thought I'd probably get married, and I probably would stay at home. Because I'm going to tell everybody live streaming, I'm going to be 60 in December. So back then, there wasn't a lot of people talking about careers. I had a half generation of people ahead of me that were busy swimming their own race, and they weren't pulling a hand back. There were a few, but it wasn't common. So I think I would have done more planning. I would have been looking at I didn't do that until I was well in my 30s.
So fast forward to 2018, and you're the new CEO of the Colorado Technology Association. Can you maybe share with us, first and foremost, what is CTA?
Okay.
What's your role as CEO, and what are you being asked to do? And how did you evaluate taking the role? I mean, what was important to you in thinking through stepping into something like this?
Okay. It's interesting because I had actually decided I was going to leave IBM. I have an LLC called Agile Joy, and I was going to go consult. And the reason I came up with Agile Joy, my sister said it sounded like a yoga studio, but I
It does a little bit, yeah. Sign me up.
So I I put two things together. One is in this environment, whether you're in technology or not, you have to be agile. And people perform better when they're happy and joyous, so that's hence the term Agile Joy. And the URL wasn't taken.
Now, is it .com or is it
Yeah,
.io or
.com.
yeah? All right. Ooh.
So that was what I was going to do, and then we got the email as the board that Andrea had resigned, and I thought, oh, darn. And then I woke up the next morning, I'm like, I could do that. And it basically was everything I wanted to do for somebody else's organization. So I called David Roberts, and I'm like, okay, well, you know. So what I like about it is that this is running a small business, no doubt. We are a nonprofit, but it has all the feeling of running a small business. We are going to celebrate our 25th year next year, but it has all the feeling of a startup. And the reason it does is that what was true 5 years ago is no longer true today. And so this is a real opportunity to put some structure and around where we're going to go. I'm going to use a book and a methodology from a book called Traction. Is anybody familiar with that? Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting book, and it's about an entrepreneurial operating system. And I didn't find it to have a whole bunch of new stuff in it. What I found was structure, and that's what I'm looking at, is that there's 8 things that we really need to be focused on, you know, from financial structure to process to, you know, mission statement to marketing, everything. And so that's my first move, is to take what we already have, which is a great foundation, and to move it forward. And you're going to ask me what our 4 pillars are, and we'll talk about that.
As it turns out, I am going to ask you what the 4 pillars are.
So you guys are going to laugh
She's
at
making
me.
this so easy on me now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to laugh at me, because when I talk about the 4 pillars, I always repeat myself, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't talk about, and so I thought it would be a good idea for me to write it down so I didn't mess it up on camera. So we do have 4 pillars, and they are consistent, and it makes sense as we go forward to continue with these 4 pillars. The first one is advocacy, you know, when I look at advocacy, it's around working with you know, legislators and regulators on what's good for the industry. And you know, this goes back and forth on how we focus on this, but my point of view is what's good for the industry is providing a petri dish for innovation, and not necessarily saying that boat gets, you know, that guy gets a yacht and this one gets a dinghy. It means all the boats go up together. So we can look at what's going to happen in the next 5 years with IoT, drones, AI. There's a lot of regulation and legislation coming down the pike, and I think we need to be a voice of clarity. Okay, the next one is community, which most of you guys are familiar with. We do a lot of signature events. We do sea level at Mile High. Anybody been to that? Yay! You were a celebrity.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did get talked into doing that once. Yes.
Please.
Oh, I did.
I got a beat on somebody else that can do it. Anyway, that is our major fundraiser, and it also is really an opportunity to, you know, for community. We have 1,200 people show up and network in Denver, all from technology. That's one. WIT is actually how I wound up, Women in Technology Conference is how I wound up involved in this. And we had Meg Whitman, the CEO of HP, 2 years ago, and this year we had some phenomenal speakers, and it's a very energizing opportunity. 700 women coming together, and then we also have other signature events. But our big thing on that is to bring people together and have them talk and network and exchange ideas. We also are very focused on talent. Talent is a gating factor for growth in the tech industry. As we look at what's going to happen and what is already happening, Technologies like IoT and AI and robotics are replacing jobs 7 times faster than or offshoring. However, they're also creating more jobs than are being displaced. And the problem is fitting the skills to that. And we've got a dearth of skills in Colorado, and there's lots of stuff that we're working on in that area. And then economic development. We want a seat at the table how we're going to be successful in our economic growth in Colorado is having technology at the forefront. And so bringing in technology-rich companies into Colorado is critically important.
There you have it, the 4 pillars. Yeah, you did great.
Okay, awesome.
Can you just share quickly how you met our team at WIT? We had quite a few women there, and I know you had a chance to chat with some of them.
Yeah, it was actually, we kind of announced that I was going to be taking this role there, so I was kind of, I got inserted into the program.
You're a little incognito, I heard,
was.
too. Yeah.
I was a little incognito. I was wearing some funky pants, too. I almost re-wore them, but anyway, yeah, I came and I did the beginning speech. I also had my sister there because we were training. I took 2 months off from leaving IBM to starting, and I went to Ireland with my husband, and then I came back and did the Inca Trail with my sister. And so she had come out to train, and so she was there, and I surprised her and made her cry because I really reflected on my relationships with women in business really stemmed from my relationship with my sister. And I have really rich, long-term relationships with other women as a result of that. And so I talked about it. And I talked about, that feel, I've got a lump in my throat. That feeling of compassion and, you're there for, your sister. But there's also a fierceness. And I've had that happen with other women that I've worked with, and I talked a little bit about that, is that fierceness, like when something does go wrong, it's not all peaches and cream, and sometimes you're not treated fairly. And, I have gone to friends and said, this happened today. And is it just me, or was that just not right? And I've had, friends come back like bears and say, you write an email, you get that fixed, do not put up with that, and gave me courage. And my sister and I have always done that for each other. So anyway, Michelle came up, and we started talking, and we had this incredibly passionate conversation about the opportunities for women in technology, about the fact that, as a salesperson in technology, I shouldn't be the only woman in the room, and often I am, and what we need to do about it. So in that conversation, Michelle had made a difference for me because my sister and I got in the car and talked about this on the way home. As you go through your career, when you first start and stuff that shouldn't happen does happen, as a woman in business, just in general, you don't really tolerate it very well. And I'm seeing this with my daughters who they've graduated and they're out in the business world, and they'll call me and they'll say, you're not going to believe what happened today, blah, blah, blah. This guy said blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I do believe it. And they're like, well, what would I do? You didn't put up with that, did you? And so I had this graph in my head of when I first started, here's the y-axis, which is tolerate. So I'd start out here, not tolerating anything. And then as your opportunity costs got higher, you start tolerating more because you got to. You can't hit people over the head with a 2x4. And so, and so now I'm on the other side. My kids are through college, and now I'm not tolerating as much. So when I hear something I don't like, I just kind of say it. So, but the conversation with Michelle was so passionate. I'm like, this isn't right, and that's not right. I'm like, you're right. And so we get in the car, and I say, well, I've been putting up with this. I think I should say something. Okay, I'll go do, yeah. So I will tell you one that just came up, and it wasn't a woman issue. It was just dumb. So I went back to the national associations of all tech associations for all the states. We all get together once a year. So that was one of the first things I did. And I brought somebody from our team, Ahmed Hassan, who does membership for us. And so we check in, and he gives his name. The desk clerk called him Mohammed from the first time, I mean like 4 times. And he was making an effort to say, you know, use his name. I can appreciate that. But the reality is his name was Ahmed. And I corrected him. I said, his name's Ahmed. And I turned to him afterwards and I said, does that happen often? He goes, that's why I just sometimes say I'm Ed. That's just wrong. We need to be more cognizant. So anyway, I fought the bear.
So we're going to move on from CTA here in a minute. Oh, no. This is just setting up the next set of questions.
He
So,
sits next to me in board
Yeah.
meetings, and he
Yeah.
like scoots back because my arms get big.
yeah. Well, I was pretty intentional about taking this side because I've sat on this. She sat on this side of me before, and yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Bruises of field.
so I mean, just one more sort of big question on CTA.
Okay.
So, you know, art of the possible.
Yeah.
Right. There's no budgets. There's no constraints. There's no, like, in your like, what will it look like in like whenever you decide that your tenure of running it is up? So, you achieve huge dreams, right? It all comes true.
Yeah.
I mean, what have we done together there?
Okay. So I'm looking at this as the first thing we need to do is look out 10 years out, which is a hard thing to do, which is not a plan for 10 years, but what's this going to look like? And as I had mentioned, we're going to see this huge change. And in order to be minimum relevant and really as a, you know, I use the word essential, to be essential to the tech community and the business community in Colorado, we need to be looking along those lines. Where's the growth and continue to change as the tech community changes. So that would be my vision, is that we are adapting all the time and staying in front of these new technologies that are being implemented, like blockchain and IoT, et cetera. My general objective is to increase our influence, increase our membership, and increase our engagement. So within our, and I'm putting metrics against that. So on the membership, everybody's going to have a metric, everybody's got accountability, and yet we all collaborate to help each and every one of ourselves, bad English, to meet our objectives. So when I walk away, this is a thriving enterprise that has a seat at the table at the leadership levels within our state, that, you know, we're getting calls to advise on technology issues, and that we're thriving financially.
Not many people know it, but when we were launching Sling, we actually went to CTA and looked for local strong companies that could help us.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, and one of them actually moved here and has an office in Boulder now, Curly.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so it's CTA can be just a powerful force in the community, and it really is all about working together and looking for mutual opportunity.
Well, in that connecting, I'm having it happen all the time. I mean, I need to figure out how to scale that, because I'll have a conversation with, a community leader that's saying, you know what, we really would like to figure out how to meter our trees so that we don't have trees die. I'm like, I'm going to take you over here. And brokering that. So I got to figure out how we scale that so that we broker need and solutions.
So on to a little bit more about opportunity. So just can you share your thoughts with us about what you're excited about for Colorado and where you see us going?
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of buzz about Colorado right now, and we're recruiting. There's active efforts recruiting talent out of Silicon Valley here, because Colorado is an awesome place to live. And so we're looking for talent there, but we're also looking for getting people that aren't necessarily participating in the tech environment engaged. And that goes back to the talent piece. There is a ton of work being done. And in order to do this, you have to look at it in totality. And so you've got to get your pipeline started, and pipeline means early on in middle school, high school, elementary school, on getting interest from individuals that may not have been interested in it. And so for instance, we're doing a SheTech coding. I'm missing my noun. Camp. Sounds like. Anyway, we did it last year, and it's very successful on getting girls working together and on coding projects and sparking that. I'm excited about Colorado because I think we've got a great lifestyle. We've got a great opportunity for a wonderful employment base, and I think it's critically important for the health of our community that tech be in the forefront. I think that these jobs pay well, they're interesting, and they provide a career path like no other. And I want to talk a little bit about that because, we have been talking about, I've been at IBM for 18 years. We were talking, just in general, my linear career path is not what my daughters are going to see. This is going to be more of a lattice kind of view. And with that, I've mentioned personal responsibility for making sure that you keep your skills up and know where to go and find out from your employer or other areas where the next cool thing is and how you can plug yourself into it. And it's not going to be linear. It's going to be, I would call it squirrel. Yeah. But you have to do it with a plan. And, I often get asked, and you haven't asked me this yet, but I'll go ahead and answer it.
See how this is working out for me? This is great.
I often get asked on how do I get engaged with tech. And, there's lots of educational opportunities through higher ed or, certificate kind of programs. I would, kind of look and see what areas that you might be interested in. If you don't know, talk to people and, get some ideas. And then look for really low cost opportunities to investigate. How many people in the room know what MOOCs are? Proudly. Yay. The guy on the apple back there knows what MOOC. But MOOCs are a very well-kept secret for some reason. It's massively open online courses, and there's a myriad of them. My choice has always been Coursera, and I have taken really interesting classes free. And I mean, there's thousands of people globally taking these classes. You get peer reviews. It's a great way to step your foot in and say, oh, yeah, I'm interested in this. So I would say, that, if you're interested in how you get in, that's the first step in. And then look for certificate programs, look for higher education opportunities.
But case in point, you don't have to be able to write code to work in tech and to learn about it and do things, right? I think that
That's right.
That's something that people get a little nervous about, right? What am I going to have to do? But there's a lot of creativity and design and other things in technology as well, right? Because it's really supposed to make things simpler.
Yeah, and I've spent I call it the soft side of tech. I've spent my career translating technology to business benefit. And so, you don't have to be, I had to be smart enough to, not be wearing funny shoes and, red nose.
Well, on the subject of talent, just to build on what you were talking about there, maybe you could share a little bit about your personal leadership philosophies, and then also maybe, what's top talent to you? What are the types of people you're looking at to put in your rowboat and build winning teams?
Well, when I'm interviewing somebody, I have three things. Do they want to be doing the opportunity that I have available for them? Are they going to fit into the team? And do they have the aptitude, which is not necessarily that they have the skill. Do they have the aptitude to do it? Because, and this is another thing. Oh, sorry, I did a squirrel here. Another thing that women do is that we think we have to have every single box checked, and you don't. You have to show that you're willing to do the things you need to do to ramp yourself up. So that's what I'm looking for. Today, we run a very lean team that is the biggest thing that we have, that is the most important is the collaboration, accountability and collaboration. And so I'm looking for an individual that fits into that. I can't have somebody that is going to disrupt that very positive flow. I also, from a leadership perspective, think that you always should be playing for people's strengths. And so if you've got an individual on the team that's in the wrong seat on the bus because you're trying to minimize their weaknesses, you need to figure out how to adjust, or maybe make a tough decision. And that's not easy, but as a team, it's really hard on the team to have somebody that's not getting the job done. That I think that almost is a virus. So fortunately, I will tell you I've got an awesome team and I don't have any problems, but I've never been shy about making the tough decisions, and I think people who've worked for me have appreciated it, because when it comes to those difficult times when you may have headcount reduction, I'm the first one to say, not here, because I already did it.
Maybe we can jump into one of the pillars real quick,
Okay.
which is talent.
Okay.
This, asking this just from a broader place. I know we're focusing on women in tech here today, but how do you think about just sort of the common issues that companies face when it comes to, creating diversity, whether in STEM jobs or in other jobs?
Yeah.
And how would you approach that as an executive?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with, I'm also very skills focused, expertise focused, and less credential focused. And I think the companies, particularly in tech, that are going to be successful in attracting talent are not necessarily checking the box on a 4-year degree for every tech job. I also think it's important that organizations, tech organizations within the larger organization, work really closely with the HR and hiring function to truly understand what you need in the in the group. And I'll give you an example. There's my daughter's a data scientist. I'm very proud of that. What drives her nuts is not having, when she has the overall, she's working on the overall structure and how she's going to approach the problem and the algorithms, and then not having somebody that can execute against that, and she has to do it, and she winds up, the employer winds up squandering that talent doing, I hate to use the word lower level, but it is. It's a less expertise required in that area. And so that's where I would say that tech organizations need to be working with recruiters to understand that every data scientist or every person that's in charge of cybersecurity areas probably has 4 other jobs that don't require 4-year degrees, that you can get through certificates, and really having that, I would say that's one of the biggest things. Now, from a diversity perspective, that also stems from that, is that how do you pull in somebody that might have been going a different path, not wanted, wasn't thinking about technology. How do you make that easy for them? And it requires intentionality. When I hear somebody say, well, we just didn't have the pipeline. Well, if you got a metric, play to the metric And, okay, I'm going to tell you another thing that bugs me.
All right.
When I hear, yeah, well, we'd like diversity, but we really need to have the best people. It's not an either or. If everybody in the room looks alike, you're going to get groupthink. So you need the diversity to get that ingenuity.
Absolutely. And, we definitely agree with, look, if you're ready to learn new things, work hard, have a need for achievement, there's lots of opportunities there for everybody.
Yeah.
So one of the things that plays into a successful career is, whether you're, men, women alike, is mentorship. And I've had many mentors over the years. Is that something that you actively do now, or did you have any key mentors as you grew through your career that left an impact for you?
I have some. I talked about some of the fierceness. I have gone back and said, well, do you think that's right? We had a mentoring program at IBM that was structured, and that always, I sought that out, and as a mentee, I took responsibility for that, and that's one of the things that I think is really critically important, that the person that is being mentored owns it and owns what you want to get out of it. Now, that will morph as time goes on because the relationship changes, but initially that's really critically important. I do a lot of mentoring at the college level through CU Lead School of Business, and they have a great professional mentoring program. And what I'm shameless because this is so self-serving. I get more out of mentoring than I think I give back. And I've had opportunity to introduce early career individuals, mostly women, to opportunities in tech. But what I have learned from them has been far more important. And what is really rewarding is when I'm able to connect the dots in the network. And I had an example where I had a young woman that actually wound up living with us for the summer because she had an internship in the South and she was living in Boulder, and I'm like, we're empty nesters, come eat, we live in our basement. Anyway, she was looking for another job, and she sent me her case study, and it really needed work. I mean, a lot of work. And I had another woman that I'd worked with that wound up at a consulting company, and she did case studies awesome. That's what got her the job. I put them together. She told her things that I couldn't have told her and had the same credibility that she had as a peer. So, and secondly, I didn't know as much about the subject. So the bottom line is that mentoring is critically important. Asking for sponsorship is critically important, and looking at the complexity of that and really taking advantage of it.
Oh, that's great. I think, as you're mentoring, that is an opportunity to grow your network.
Yeah.
And with CTA, as I explain the benefits that I get from CTA, it's really, you get to build an amazing network, work with great people, and have a lot of fun. Can you maybe share a little bit about how you've approached building your own personal network and relationships and things like that here in the community?
This again speaks to intentionality. A couple years ago, I had it in my mind I was going to make a job change, and wasn't sure quite what that looked like. And once I was in my mid-30s, like I said, I started to plan and started to be A to B, and since then, I hadn't really just looked around and what's there. And so that's what I did. I kind of just took let's see what happens. But I was very intentional about expanding my network. I was on an airplane flying to the West Coast every week. I had lost my network, a lot of my network here. And so absolutely through LinkedIn. I also was bold about calling people that I respected and said, can you spend 30 minutes with me? And, a lot of people said, I can talk to you in 2 months. And I said, how about if we just talk for 15 minutes on the phone? No drive time, no overhead, no coffee, no jitters. And that worked really well. And then it doesn't take much. It's like pulling a thread. All of a sudden, it's the network happens. So, and I've been very intentional on LinkedIn. I'm not a Twitterer because I like to be in the moment, and I always feel like, oh, hold on a second. I have no videos of my children growing up because I didn't want to see it through a lens.
So I want to make sure we leave some time for questions. I'm sure the group has some, but I'll end with this. It's two parts. Are there any questions I should have asked you but didn't that where you'd want to address it for the group?
I think I answered the questions that you didn't ask me. Sorry.
A few here and there, yeah. And then just what would your sort of lasting set of comments be for the Dish Women's Network before we get into Q&A?
Well, first of all, I'm impressed with the sheer numbers that you have, and that comes with passion. So I know Michelle has incredible passion around this, and I know that there are other women that I don't know who their names are that have incredible passion around this. Keep it going. These things have momentum one way or the other, and so if you keep the passion going, keep the activity going, keep the accountability going, you're going to do wonderful things. I don't know that I haven't imparted everything I think of from a wisdom perspective. I don't know. Put into your 401k, that would be the other thing. I'm serious about that.
Okay, with that, who has the first question? Yeah, Annie.
Well, in my head, I do. Because I mean, it is an issue. I think the congregating that we do, quite frankly, does a lot of that. And we also are going to do lower fidelity. I call it waving your American Express card. So we can do lower fidelity, lower cost opportunities to bring people together, and that's really, I see people craving that, there is a lot of this going on. So I think just intentionally through our programming we are, but it bugs me too. In my house we have had a no technology rule forever. At dinner, we eat dinner together. There's no TVs on. There's no, Anyway.
Goes back to your earlier comments about being in the moment, right? Be where you are, not somewhere else.
Yeah. Were there pivotal events that made me go from this is a job to this is a career? I will tell you, one was missing out on a job that I thought, boy, I would have been good at that, and I was standing right there, and why didn't somebody see me? And so that was an aha, and so that was back when, and that's when I became more intentional for stepping up. I also started to look for growth areas and then find out where I was, if it matched my interests. So seriously, I got into telecommunications because I read in Self magazine it was a growing industry. I am serious. I can even see it in my mind, this little, And then this opportunity came up to be a leader. I was working for NCR at the time, working with Pac Bell, which I think is now Verizon. AT&T, right? Oh, maybe. Yeah. Okay. And that. So I started to make intentional moves to improve my expertise, improve my contacts, and really look at what I liked about each thing I was doing. And I always had a vision. I had a vision to get into leadership. I had a vision to, help people be their better selves. And so I think that's when I found that I was getting so much back from that. I became a lot more intentional. I also write it down. I have a 90-day plan that I share with my family and close friends, and some of it's really bold. My daughters and I do this. And some of it's not bold. Get 10,000 steps on every day.
We helped you out with that here on campus,
I
didn't we?
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah.
So you talked about your career path a few times. I was wondering if you had any advice for somebody creating their career path for the first time, or any things to consider?
There's a really good book called Creating Your Life, and it's from it's based on design thinking, and it's the professor. I wish I could remember their last name. They're professors out of Stanford that have come up with this, and they've applied design thinking to navigating your life, and that was very helpful to me when I decided I was going to change, and I was opening up my aperture to see what I liked. And there's actually workbooks in there that you can kind of work on. Again, if you're loving what you're doing, you're going to be better at it. And so that would be, putting framework around that, I think, is a good idea.
What's been the biggest change between being in the for-profit and moving to the nonprofit sector?
I want to say this out loud. I lost 35% of my day reporting the news before. I don't have that anymore. I'm spending a lot more of my time creating, thinking, strategizing, enthusiastically celebrating successes, and it brings me a lot of joy. So yeah, but that might have just been where I was. It's not to say all large corporations have overhead. You okay with that? I didn't know
We're on a roll. Let's keep going.
Frannie, could you talk to us about the Smart Cities Initiative and the expo that's coming up?
We have a Smart Cities Symposium, thank you, on September 18th. And our presenting sponsor is Aero Electronics, and we have several sponsors along in this area. And it's going to be focused on, state and local government to an extent, but it's overall implementing technology to have a better experience as a citizen, as a human being. We have an alliance that is the Smart Cities Alliance in Colorado that we're a founding member of, and that also is with the intention of not reinventing the wheel, that we're sharing the innovation. There's a lot of cool stuff that's coming out. There's also going to be a lot of announcements there from a standards perspective. What is some cool stuff that is happening specifically in Colorado to kind of incubate that innovation. What I am seeing just in general in this space, and by space I mean things like, meters for making sure that trees are healthy, or robotics for improving security. It just goes, certainly smarter transportation. What I see is you've got these embedded technologies and capabilities from the telecommunications industry, and then you've got, you need solutions, and that's where I think we're going to broker with Smart Cities. We're going to broker the embedded technology to the business need through discrete solutions.
I'll go ahead and plug. There's going to be some amazing speakers there. So Suma Nalpati from the state will be speaking. So I think Alita
Yep.
from City of Aurora, Alita
Yep.
Jeffries.
Yep.
So it's going to be a great event, and we'll definitely have some dish participation. So.
And we're adding a few more speakers. We're actually in a pretty good position for being 5 weeks out, but I'm kind of excited. I can't say who it is, but I think we're going to get a really cool speaker on some stuff.
You're keeping the trains on time, so
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, we're getting it all
Right.
planned out. That's good.
That's right. Is there a guy that has a question? It works. It's safe. Although you had a lot of questions and I didn't answer them, but. Yeah, well, right now I'm reading Denver Business Journal and the Denver Post because I kind of got out of what was going on specifically in the community. I read a lot of business books. Right now I'm finishing up Traction. I like When from Daniel Pink. I like Designing Your Life. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. The Originals, I love that book. The ones that I'm going to pick up are Inc. I feel like I'm a little bit, I need to improve my skills on the capital side and the entrepreneurial side. And I will tell you, I do think that the small entrepreneurs that are doing these really cool things will be a critical part for R&D for a lot of large companies, and I'm trying to figure out how we play in that. So that's kind of where I'm focused on getting smart.
The equity space is growing in Colorado.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's what I was going to say. We always talk about talent. Equity in Colorado is critically important for our growth.